Alrighty, guys. Thanks for joining the class today. My name is Goro Fujita, and today I'm going to cover the new features of 2.7, including transform constraints, new keyframe workflows, and cameras. Okay, so basically, there's a new feature called transform constraints here that we can use for rigging, puppeteering, and post-post animation, which is like really powerful. But I'm going to show it first in a very simple manner. So, for example, if you have, like a character here, it's a masterpiece. In the transforms, you can select by layer, right? Auto select transform object by layer. If you set it to group, nothing's going to happen because I don't have a group. But if I put the character in a group, and let me separate this here, then you will see it will automatically grab the group. See? And if I set this to layer, it automatically grabs the layer. So we wanted to always set this to grab group because like you want to animate groups, that way you keep the actual paint layers isolated and you can add stuff into the group as you want, as you wish later. So in general, I said that before in other classes, in general, it's recommended to use the transform keyframes only on groups, and then you do frame by frame animation on the paint layers themselves. So you can do transform keyframes on layers, but that can cause problems later when you want to like add something to it or separate a layer and want the same keyframes on it. Then it's always recommended to have it on the group because then you can create multiple layers underneath and it will maintain the animation, if that makes sense. So this is like a really, really important function. And if you see, if it's set to layer or group, you see like the regular transforms are deactivated. That is by design, so you don't accidentally move stuff. So if you grab empty frame, you can still move the camera. If you grab the object, you automatically select the object. So this is like the first thing to think about because we're going to use the auto select transform object by group quite a bit. All right, so you guys already know the gimbal, like you can show the gimbal controls here, or right thumbstick press will show and hide the gimbal. With the index finger trigger, you can move the gimbal to where you want, and you can also move it alongside the axis with the index finger. But let's say we want to put the rotation pivot here, right? And normally you can just rotate through this, through the gimbal, using the gimbal. But the cool thing is now, if you use the transform constraints, so I have auto select group now, if I just grab it, as I expected, you can move it. But what if I remove the translate option, right? Then all of a sudden I can just rotate it and grab it anywhere and rotate it along where the gimbal is, right? So this is like really, really powerful. And what if I want to just scale from basically from this point, right? So basically you can scale the character like this. But the cool thing is, for example, sometimes you want to be away from the character and only scale from the center of the gimbal. What you can do then is that you just set this to auto select transform none and you use the regular transform. And now you can just do it from afar. So you don't even have to reach into the object, right? So like this is really, really useful because you don't have to reach into the object and you can just basically position it. If you turn on translate, you can move it away from you, right? Without rotation, which is cool. And then you can move it away and scale it. So it gives you a lot of cool controls here. All right, let's jump into the next thing, rigging. So this is like super powerful for rigging. And let me just walk you through how to set up a character properly with the transform constraints. So I'm going to turn everything on again for now. And I create, drum rolls, a robot, of course. That's me, right? So it has to be a robot.
It's on brand.
Yeah, all on brand. Okay, so let me just do like like a little robot here. It's not gonna be a pretty painting, right? Because we need to move through this fast. So I'm just gonna do like a quick painting here. So I duplicate this. Let me colorize it a little quick. Something like this, and an eyelid. Maybe I use this. Let me turn on the wireframe. Yeah. This is the head. And let me just draw some cables here. And then let me do the body. Oops, maybe the body is a bit big, so. And currently I'm not thinking about, separating layers. I can do that later. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna only work on one side. I'm gonna only work on one side because then that helps the rigging. But if you have an asymmetrical character, you can of course draw everything and then separate the layers afterwards. But I'm gonna just do one side in this case first, and then we just duplicate it over. And if you have questions in between, if something's unclear, just scream and I'm gonna elaborate on what I'm doing. Otherwise, if it's more unrelated questions, then just put it in the text chat, and Tyler, if you can be moderated later to read them to me, that would be good.
Will do.
Alrighty. Okay, so we have like our little character here. Oh, we need arms. And let me just use the arm here, the leg here, reuse it, and then, as long as I can sell the idea, I'm not trying to do like an impressive painting here. What's this one? I don't need this. And then maybe we just light him a little bit. Let me do this. Unselect, duplicate, and then, you know what? I do that later. Once I have the other side, that makes more sense. Okay, now you see he is like on one layer, right? So I have to break him up now. And obviously you can break him up while you're like painting, but for me it's like usually easier to do it like this first, and then I separate them afterwards. So we have the bot folder, which is gonna be our parent folder. And underneath we're gonna create, oops, not a new layer, new folder called head. Right? And then I'm gonna just select the head without the neck, or maybe I select the neck as well. And then I click the head group and hit new layer. What it does is it's already separated it into basically the selected strokes into a new layer. Okay, then I create another group, select just the head portion without the neck, and hit new layer. So now I have the head separated. So maybe we call this one neck, and we call this one head. So now what I'm gonna do is I set the gimbal. So I press the joystick, and so I go to transform, I press the joystick, I see the gimbal, and I'm for the head, I'm gonna put it here. I'm gonna test it a little bit. Is it working? It's perfect. I'm gonna go to the neck, put the pivot here, test it, it's perfect. Okay, so let's go to the next element. So under the bot, I want to like separate the torso, right? So what I'm gonna do is like, this is already separated, so this is good. So I'm gonna create another folder and call it arm. Right? And then I select the whole arm, and maybe I don't select this joint here, just these guys, and hit new. Now I have the arm separated, right? And then I basically select this arm, and maybe, let me think. Yeah, let me do this joint as well. And then I will create a new folder and hit new. So now the forearm is in this folder, right? And now I select the wrist and create a new folder and create a new layer. And now I have the wrist or the hand. So now I can rename it hand. This is forearm. And then we have the arm, right? So now I do the same thing, make sure to put the pivots where the rotation should take place. I'm just gonna always test it if it's working. That looks good. And then the arm over here. And let me move the arm a little bit in. Down maybe a little. Okay, this is working well. So I'm gonna do the same thing for the leg now. So I'm gonna create a new folder, call it leg. Select the leg here, create a new layer, right? Select the calf, create a new folder, create a new layer. Select the foot, create a new folder, create a new layer. So now this is the foot. This is the lower leg. And then we have the leg, right? What I have to do now is I put the rotation pivot here, rotation pivot here. Let's see. That's good. And then the rotation pivot over here. Let's do this. We move it in a little. Yeah, that's good. All right. Now I have here the torso. So I'm going to now put the torso. This is the torso group. I put the neck in there. I put the arm in there. And I put the torso in there. I leave the legs out. And then I put the torso rotation here. Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to duplicate the leg group. And this is maybe the R leg. And we have the L leg. L leg. And then I'm just going to transform with it. Oh, yeah, here. Flip in X. Move it over here. And then for the arms, I do the same thing, duplicate. And then for the arm, I'm just going to flip an X and move it over here. And you can see I forgot the joints. So let me just get the joints, not the joints, the whatever that is, the segments here, the washers, giant washers. Here we go. Okay, so now I have the rig is almost complete, and maybe I want to have like a general handle for moving the whole rig, right? Because right now, if I move the torso, the legs don't come with the group, so I can create a new layer here, and maybe I create like a little hip at the bottom. So maybe I create like a little hip. Something like this, and then if I grab, and that way I can grab the whole bot to move it around. So let me grab it and put it on the grid here. And then also, let's see, let's go to the head layer. Where's the head? Here, and then I want to make him a little bit more interesting. So maybe he's like listening to music or something. Not that this is important, you know. I just want to make it cooler. He's like a cool guy, so maybe he has a headset. Maybe he sings. All right, we have something like this. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all visible unlocked layers, and then duplicate it slightly, ever so slightly, and then just color dodge it a little bit. Colorize. Oops. And we have nice lighting.
Like a K-pop star.
Yeah, K-pop robot. BTS. Okay, let me just remove this eye here. I don't need this. Okay, so let me save at this point. And this is it. This is how simple you can create a rig. And now what you can do is you turn on auto select group, remove translate, right? And then what happens, it becomes a stop motion rig.
That took you what, 10 minutes? 7.
Right, and then you can still, so if you turn on translate, you can, you know, lift the whole body. If you turn it off, you can, you know, like still rotate everything the way you want. And you can do the David Hernandez technique to do the reverse forward kinematics, you know, where you create the chain from the bottom to have more control over planting foots and stuff like that. But that's completely up to you, right? So the most powerful thing now is, let me see if I'm like staying on track with the things. Yeah, now we can do puppeteering. So let me bring in like a song here, right? So we have a song. Do you guys hear it? Do you guys hear the song? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me turn down the volume a little bit so you guys can hear me. Okay, so now we have the music here, right? And then I can turn on the recording function. And this is going to be like really, really crazy because this is like super fast how you can do things. So basically, I usually start with the wrists, or like, you know, I go from the end of the chain upwards, right? So let's start with the head, for example. He's dancing. Okay, so. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Maybe he's like sniffing his hands or something, you know. So one thing you can do, right? I basically define the work area. So that's where I want to loop the whole thing. So I'm just going to loop because that way I don't have to rewind. I can just keep animating one by one. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2. And I go next to the next arm and do the same thing. Maybe I don't move this one too much. Maybe at the end, you know. Ba-da-ba-da-boom. Pom pom. And the thing is, like, I'm just recording in real time right now, and this is one way to do things. If you want to really animate something really, really fast, this is like the way to do it, because you can basically do it all in real time, right? It's like super powerful. Bam, bam.
It's great. I'm just checking if my internet connection is laggy, or is it your video that's laggy now?
I'm getting that too.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, I mean, you know, the video will be smooth, so the recording will be smooth. Maybe it's just, you know, maybe it's just slow. Is it pretty bad?
Every couple of seconds, it's just freezing.
Okay, maybe it's because of the music. Okay, if maybe it's like some settings of you guys, but we'll see. The recording will be smooth.
Yeah, no worries.
Now it's fine. Now it's fine.
Hey, Goro, while you work through this.
Yep, I'm done actually. Yeah, what's up?
Yeah. No, sometimes, you know, I want to do the major pieces first and then move down to the smaller, the you know, like the larger arm before I get to the hands, because sometimes it's hard to predict.
Yep.
Doing it this way, is there any way to do that? Because it seems impossible to grab anything after you've already moved the big pieces.
So basically, if you want full control, you know, what you would do is just post animation. So this is just like a quick way to do things. And obviously, you're not going to get the exact movement you want because you're just puppeteering, right? So it's like two different workflows. So in this case, you know, like if you want like really precise animation and stuff, I would just do it post to post, which I'm gonna show next. And we're, I think, 20 minutes in, and we already have a fully animated character here, you know, and obviously you could spend more time into it, but you see like how complex the animation already is. And the cool thing is, because this is all transform keyframe animation, you know, you can now mix it with frame-by-frame animation, right? So, Peter, I will come to your question after this when I show frame more. That was Peter, right? I think.
Yeah,
that's your voice. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna show you like the pose-to-pose workflow, how I would do what you're talking about. There's no easy way to puppeteer the arm first and then the hands, because the hand will move around, right? So you can't really chase it.
Yeah,
you know.
And I guess the only thing that I have tried with that, I have been doing pose to pose, but the one thing I did try was put a spawn point.
That could work. Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to work.
Okay.
Like you lose complete control when you do that. So I'm not sure if you've tried that before.
I haven't tried that because like I usually want full control, you know. This is like a quick and dirty way if you want to like do something really, really fast, you know. But if I would do something like, you know, Danielle's Dia de los Muertos thing, there's no way around doing pose to pose and do like exactly what you want. But it just takes like triple the amount of time or 10 times longer, you know. But the results also looks usually better. So
okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay, so let me see. For example, if I want to add a blink or something, right? So I can go into this layer, and now I can basically separate the eyes to avoid that I animate the whole head, right? So that's the super cool thing about animating groups, because the eye is still in place, right? So now I can say like, okay, I'm gonna duplicate the frame here, and then he's gonna blink. So let me, oops, I have to turn on translate. Like this, duplicate frame, close the eye, duplicate frame, and then I'm gonna basically duplicate and then start removing the eyelid again. So I just duplicated frames for the eyelids, and then yeah, I think we have a blink now. So now he blinks like in between, you know. So you can like easily do something like this really, really quickly, which is really, really useful if you have everything in groups, because now you can like add another blink later on, you know, and so on. So this is like super powerful. Let me just duplicate this whole bot and show you like what you can also do. So let me turn this off and move him over. There's another, and let me turn the visibility of this guy off. So now we have two bots dancing, right?
Ce qui serait bien, c'est qu'une fois qu'on ait ça, on peut, tu vois.
Oh, je ne sais pas le français. Who's speaking? So okay, so now we have the second bot. Let me remove all the keyframes. So this is another thing that's like really, really cool, where you can basically, there's this feature called select keyframes in all children. If you select this, let me turn off the work area, you can basically do a selection over this, and you will see it will select all the keyframes underneath. And if I delete it, now you see that only the blink will be there, because the blink will be still like frame by frame animation. But now you have cleaned up the whole animation, which is really cool. Don't forget to turn this off again, because otherwise it will always select the children. Let me see, we go into Keyframe Workflow, no, hierarchy, select, copy, paste. Okay, yeah, so we can go from pose to pose into showing the Keyframe Workflow next. So let's see. So let me put him into like a really cool position here, and then cool pose. You know, maybe he's having his hand on his hips, you know, chilling, relaxing, something like this. Okay. And then I want to animate pose to pose. What you can do, so there's no way to select set keyframes for all. So what I usually do is like I turn on the record, which will turn on auto key, and I set the interpolation mode to stepped, because I want to animate pose to pose now, right? So basically, once you have the first pose down, let me just pose him a little bit. Maybe this arm is lower. Just like this. Maybe he's like, let's do something like this. Man spread. All right. So we have this guy here. Maybe he has some swag. Hey, what's up? What's up? All right, so we have this guy, and then we go further in the timeline. Let's go like, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. At frame 10, he's like, hey, How you doing? Right. So I'm not gonna do like a great animation here. It's only to show you guys the concept of how I would work. And then because it's step curves, you can just go ahead and then do different poses. Maybe now he finds something on the ground and he's like, let me check this out. What's going on the ground?
It was almost in the same way I would animate in Maya.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say
easier.
Yeah, it is easier. So now you have like, and now you see like, oh, the timing is like completely off. I want to like basically make sure that the poses are spread apart further, right? So in this case, what you can do is you turn on the hierarchy select, and then you can always select them through, even there's no keys up here, it respects the hierarchy. So what you can do is like you slide over and then you can move these keyframes and retime the whole animation. Right? So this is like super powerful because that way you can just basically time your whole animation.
That's really good, actually.
And then basically pose everything the way you want and match it to the music, or create the timing you want. And then a super powerful feature, which is copy paste, right? With the hierarchy select, it's actually like really, really powerful. So you can just basically select hierarchy, copy, and paste the pose here, boom. And now you have a perfect loop. So it goes like this, goes back to the regular pose, and if you basically loop the sequence, you will see that it's like a perfect loop, right? There you go. So this was like one key element that was missing is copy paste keyframes. That's definitely a game changer, right? So you can do something like this. So, obviously then, like you can go from here to here, and maybe I want an in-between here, right? And then you can just check. So with those little squares, it's hard to see the in-betweens, that's not ideal, but this is the way you can just basically animate pose to pose, and
how do you have auto select layer or something? I don't know that.
Auto select group.
Group, okay.
Yeah, and I have so toggle recording, so it's recording, so everything I move, it will create a keyframe for me. So,
okay.
So what it does is essentially it doesn't select the layer, it selects the group straight up.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah.
And it's powerful because if I want to add stuff to the head layer, for example, let's say that he has an antenna or something, and then, maybe he has a beard, right? But I want to test it on an extra layer because the key is on a group, it will always follow everything you already have. So this is like super powerful if you use it over groups, right? So there's another really cool function here, which I'm going to show with a much easier example. So let's say we have like a bouncing ball. And I'm going to put the bouncing ball also into a group. I select set a keyframe here, set a keyframe here, maybe move it over. Yeah, move it over. And then
you don't create a sequence group, just group.
It doesn't matter. Like
okay.
Sequence is when you want to loop it. And what I wanted to show here. So I have an animation like this. Maybe let me put another frame in there so I have something like this, right? And then I want a ping pong loop. So this is also doable now with, you just select these layers, copy them. These because I want to ping pong from here back to this position, right? So what I'm going to do is I copy them, I paste them here, select these, and hit reverse. And now, right? So now you can do like an easy ping pong loop. And this is when you need a sequence. You create a sequence, put this in.
Okay.
And then you define a loop point, and now it will loop forever.
Cool.
Really quick, Goro. I
Yep.
think this might actually be kind of relevant. We had a couple questions from Stefana. One of them was, what is the trigger and button combination to actually select multiple keyframes?
Oh, there's no button. Oh, you mean multiple keyframes? You just
Like
reach
to,
in
like,
and
drag
slide.
it.
You reach in and slide. You don't have to press
Sweet.
any button.
Mhm.
So
And
when
the second is,
Yep.
oh, go on.
yeah, and when you want to scrub in the timeline, you just grab because before you could scrub in the timeline by dragging in, but you can just grab the slider at the top to scrub. But then now if you push in and slide, you see like this little selection marquee, and then you can just move this, or move these guys, like individually.
And that drag works like even not just on that layer, it can go like within a nested group as well and hit multiple layers, can it?
That is correct. So if I do select hierarchy, keyframes in all children, you will see that if I drag, if I drag, you see that it selects everything.
And the second one he asked, which I think I tried to answer a little bit in the text chat, but that's not in the stream. Is there a way to go to the next keyframe in the timeline without being on a keyframe? I don't think there is anymore. Like, I think if you're not selected on a keyframe, it doesn't take you there anymore. I'm wrong. Cool.
Yeah.
It has been patched out. It never happened. This has always been this way.
I know.
Okay, it works.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't that way before.
So it works.
Kurt had one really quick where he was asking if there's a certain axis movement constraint. So if you want to only limit it to X, Y, or Z axis.
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah, what you can do is like you orient the gimbal in a way if you want a specific axis. And then you can use the gimbal to rotate along a specific axis. But yeah, I mean, you can do the David Hernandez technique to nest a bunch of layers to get exactly that effect. But to me, personally, for me, it was like super useful. Yeah, you can still do this, right? You can still like auto-select this, turn on the gimbal, and you can still do this, right? So depending on how you set up the gimbal, like you won't be able to do it alongside this axis, for example. I don't know if you guys see, but between the X and Z, then you would have to like turn the gimbal, turn it, and then do it, right? But that's how you would do it. But in general, it's pretty cool to do it like this. Which brings me actually to a pretty good point here. Sometimes it's like you want subtle movements, right? You want like, what is going on? What's happening, right? What you can do is like in the head layer, you just create a new layer, draw a line, a handle like this, and then you just grab this,
Great.
Controls.
Yep. You can do stuff like that. Now, of course, you don't need this handle. You can just put a sphere here, and then just grab the sphere. But I like that. I like
Handle's
to have
cool.
like I like to do something like this because it makes it like very tangible, And then this is, for example, how I did my Mandalorian, who really moves like in a very smooth motion, and then like depending on the angle, it makes it like sometimes easier. If you have the handle here, here, then you're like, what? And you see like the movement is really minimal. So this is like when Johnny Belmont said like, I want more control. This is how you get more control, right? You just change the angle where you grab, basically. And obviously you could grab it and then move your hand out and try to move it far away. But then if you're recording, the beginning part will be like a jerky movement. This way you can just animate it like this. And then after you're done, you just delete the handle, right? And then you have like a perfect movement. So let's actually try this a little quick. Let me remove all the keyframes on the bots. So I'm just gonna go to hierarchy select and then remove all the keyframes. And then hit record as already selected. And then I'm in the head layer, I create a new layer and draw that line, draw a little handle. Oh, I love this. And then I record. Okay, and then I just remove the handle, and then you see it's like a super smooth motion.
Yeah, he looks stoned.
He is. I mean, He's gotta be, right?
He's gotta be.
Yeah. Okay. So that's so much for the keyframe animation. But I was just showing the reverse animation, so you can do stuff like that, reverse copy paste. Another powerful thing is actually that you can now let me see, where's my bouncing ball. Oh yeah, this is it. So for example, what you can do, you can create a new layer. Let me make a different colored sphere, something like this. And then you can also, if it's not a hierarchy select, if it's just, so I turn this off. If I select all, I can copy and paste it actually into a new layer. So you can do that too. So this doesn't work with a hierarchy select, obviously, because it doesn't understand the hierarchy. But you can, from single layers, you can copy paste keyframes.
Cool.
So for example, you might have realized sometimes you animated a spawn area directly, and then you're like, oh, I actually wanted it in a group, so I can put a camera in there or something like that. You can just copy it and put it in and put the keyframes in a group, and then you basically isolate the asset from keyframes. So this is like a really, really cool way to do things as well. And then reverse.
I have a question about that.
Yep.
Does it paste the keyframes on the frame that you is on the frame they're saved, or does it paste it from the playhead?
Paste from the playhead. So if I paste it here, you get it again, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I can paste it anywhere. So boom, boom, and then I have like
That's
a
really cool.
different animation, right? You see. And obviously, after you've done it, you can just delete things and then fix it, or change the timing completely by moving this around, right? So then that's one thing. And then the basically, let's say we have this animation here, the bouncing ball animation, and let me do a new one. So we use another color. Let's use green this time. Right, and we put it into a sequence because I want to loop it. So translate on, we do this and up and down. So now we have a up and down movement. And then, no, let's just do the up movement, and then between we just move it out like this. Okay, this is pretty fast, but it will sell the idea. And then let me, actually, this needs to be in a sequence because I want to bake it. So I'm gonna make it even here. Loop it here. So now it's looping, right? And now I'm gonna bake the animation and delete the original. So now I have a frame by frame animation, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now you want to, like, for example, reverse this. There's also a reverse frame by frame functionality where you can basically duplicate this, and then all you need to do is reverse the order of frames, boom, and then you move it out like this, and then you have a ping pong animation. Right? And obviously you want to not loop this. And then obviously you have to add an empty keyframe here for it to disappear. And now you have the ping pong animation, and then you can put this into a sequence, if that makes sense, and loop it at this point. And now you have like a frame by frame animation where you have a ping pong effect, right? And obviously I think you might have to remove one frame. Yeah, because you might want to remove the last frame because otherwise it's double, right? So all you need to do is just like delete this one and move this one back and move the looping point to here. And now you have a perfect ping pong loop. And now, it's actually recommended to keep it separate because this actually doesn't add a draw call because the span ends here and it will just take over. This will be a draw call and this will be a draw call, and they just swap places. However, if you want to merge these, you can do that too. It's a little bit cumbersome, but what you would do is that you create an empty layer, fill it up, right? You would move this all back to the beginning. You duplicate the first layer. Now it's duplicated, and then you delete. Oops, let me make sure I don't have select and all visible unlock layers on. You delete the first one, so the first one is empty, and then you just hold, not hold, You fill it up with empty frames until where it should swap, just like this. And then you fill the rest up with empty frames. And then you just merge it down like this, boom, boom. And now you have like one layer that just loops, if that makes sense. And now you don't even need to have it in a sequence. Let me take this out here. And then I can just loop this whole layer, and then it will be like a perfect loop. So this is how you can just merge it if you wanted to, but I would suggest you guys to keep it separate because it doesn't even add anything. It just increases control. If you want to change your animation and then you want to reverse it again, it's much easier that way to do that. And that's what you can do. Okay, so we have reverse now. Now a really cool functionality that I think Johnny covered it last time is select in all frames, and Nick covered it too, I think. Select in all frames is super powerful. So let me just hide these guys. I have too much stuff going on here. Okay, and create like a smoke layer or something. So I'm gonna create a loop of like maybe 24 frames or something. 24 should be enough. I loop it, and then maybe I save it at this point. Might be good. And then I will do fire animation or smoke. Let me turn off the music. Music is a little bit annoying right now. Okay. So I have like this
15 minutes left.
Yeah, I think I think that's good. We're almost through because cameras will be pretty quick, I think. Okay, now I have this beautiful smoke animation, right? Now I was like, oh, I want to recolor it. I want to add a little gradient in it. And previously we had to like hold it for 24 frames, you know. But now what you can do is you go to your tools and say select in all frames. Boom. Now the whole animation is selected. And now I can basically colorize it the way I want. And now it doesn't flicker. It's perfect, right? Whoa. And now I'm like, oh, I want to have like more lighting on it, right? So why don't I duplicate this and then move it up a little? Let me turn this to none, and then move this up a little. And then I select in all frames again, and let me turn off the onion skinning. And maybe I will use the color dodge now. And now I have lit smoke, right?
And you don't have to press play when you recolor the thing.
No, because everything is selected. It's almost like you did this. You held it in, and then you paused the animation. Basically, just one selection, and then you can do this, and you can always change it. You know, maybe you make it darker. Or like now it's like underlit.
And
you know.
all the things that you want selected are going to be inside of that sphere of selection sphere. So
you have to be careful. You have to be careful.
You can end up with things that are not selected.
For example, if you have something here, and you only select here, obviously that's not selected, right? So what's recommended if you have something that's more elaborate, where you have like a bunch of stuff going on, like something like this, you know, and you want to recolor everything, sometimes it's good, or like maybe for one frame you have something like this, you know, and sometimes you don't see it, right? In that case, it's recommended just to turn on all, and then you see the shadows, and then you can just make the selection box as big as you need, and then you can recolor everything.
Make the tool really big.
Yeah. But this is like a huge time saver, and it's really cool. So this is also like, I don't want these guys. You just select these and delete, and now it's like fixed. Right?
Cool.
So it's like super fast. But also, don't forget to turn it off if you don't need it, because I was animating a blink, and then I was like wondering why the blink is not moving, because I kept moving it throughout. I was editing all frames at the same time, and I'm like animated like 2 blinks, and I'm like, why? And then it was like on all the time. So now just be careful with that. But it's like super, super powerful, especially if you do particle effects or something like smoke and stuff.
It's pretty dangerous to forget that.
Yeah, but
I wish there was some sort of way the program advises you that you have that on.
Well, it's like Photoshop auto select, right? That can also totally mess you up. You can do something like this really, really quickly, which is like super nice. All right, let's go to cameras. Maybe we can put the smoke. Maybe he's farting or something. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we covered the fart jokes. Okay, let's jump into cameras. So cameras, there is like this new thing called camera layers. You can create it here, and then that creates like a beautiful field of view here, like a little monitor. And we have this thing called monitor panel. So you can look through this camera and see what it does, and you can scale it. Like scaling is actually important. I quickly cover this. If the camera is large, you see that it starts clipping, right? And that is like every 3D application has clipping planes. That happens in Maya as well. I actually don't know the physics behind it and why it has to be that way, but they have a near clipping plane and a far clipping plane. So in this case, all you need to do is make the camera small, right? And then you can get closer to things. And the clipping plane will start later, see? And if you make the camera even smaller, it will start later. So if the camera is like large in proportion to the content, you will start clipping through. So just be aware of that. Scaling the camera doesn't change anything other than that. If you want to change the field of view, you have to do it in the camera options, right? So here you can change the lens. And important to note, this is not keyable. So basically, each camera has its set field of view. It's just like a real camera, right? So let's set it to 35. I like 35 focal length. And then, like the scale only matters to avoid clipping planes. So I usually keep it fairly small. And you might think that, oh, but then I can't see anything in there. And that's why we have the monitor panel. So the monitor panel is like super powerful, because the monitor panel is kind of like the monitor panel on a real live action set, where you can switch between cameras. So if you have another camera here, let's move it over here. Right, and if the monitor panel is closed, you can actually see through the camera. So we have maybe like one here, and let's duplicate another camera, and maybe one is here. One is behind. Let's put one here. And what you can do now is, like in the monitor panel, you can switch through those cameras, right? And you can see like, oh, I actually want to adjust this one. So you can actually look at the monitor panel. You can put in like the grid overlays, make like a nice composition, just like in Queen's Gambit, they did it masterfully. Everything was like perfectly composed, the camera. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's an amazing Netflix series. All right, so something like this, right? So you can see it. And here in the monitor panel, you can change the resolution and stuff. And these resolutions will determine when you render. So I usually do like an Instagram format, 1:1, 1K. I like this, and then you can see and then you can perfectly frame things. You also have a 4x4 grid. And then you can switch through the cameras and make sure that every camera sees exactly what you want it to see. So now these are the cameras. So here you see a yellow bar. The yellow bar is a range slider, what you're going to render, just like in Maya or After Effects or Photoshop, where you define a work area and an in and out point that you will render. So for example, I want to render only, let's say from second 1 to second 6, something like this. And then here in the export panel, Now you have like sharing to Media Studio, you have capture 2D thumbnail, the quick capture mode, just like it used to be the legacy capture mode if you want to capture something really quick, or the render mode, right? So right now you can see which camera is selected. It's the camera 0. This is the other camera, camera 1, and this is camera 2, right? So you can choose which camera you want. Let's choose this one, and you can hit preview. And now you see what that camera is seeing and what the range is, and it's gonna loop within that range. So this is exactly like, then you know exactly what you're going to render, right? And if you change the range here, it will be reflected in the preview. Now it's longer, right? Now it's 8 seconds long. So basically, there's one range for all cameras, right? So basically, this will determine what portion you want to render. And that's basically it for the rendering portion. Here you can actually change it to different codecs. If you go over 4K, you have to use the VPX codec because I believe H.264 doesn't support renders over a certain resolution. I think it's like 3840 or something like that. Beyond that, it just wouldn't render. So in that case, it automatically also switches for you. If you do like an 8K render here, and then automatically you see it switches to VPX codec, and then you can set the quality here to high and render up to, like you can, I think you can even go higher if you like manually change the resolution here. But up to 4K can be rendered in NVIDIA GPU in my case, and other people might not have the latest driver installed or something, and you might only have the open H.264 option, but basically those are just codecs options that you have to render out. And then basically, let me do a smaller resolution so it's faster. So let's say we want to render this camera. Let's preview it a little quick. I might not want to render this much, so I'm gonna make it shorter just to demonstrate. And then I name the camera here, test, and hit render. And then it's going to render pretty quickly. And then now this file is in my pictures folder in Quill. Right? So this is like how you can render cameras to 2D, and now I want to cover what you can do to animate things. I usually tend to animate with one camera instead of multiple because I just for convenience, and so I'm gonna show that workflow first. We're like almost at time, but I'm gonna go a little bit over. So what I'm gonna do is like I'm gonna turn on. I'm going to create a new camera here. I'm going to create a new group and put the camera in there. The new group has the pivot usually in center 0, 0. And then I'm just going to eyeball the camera and put it like, facing the center. And obviously you could also hit reset transform. And then you know that it's like perfectly parallel to the ground. But I just hold the camera like this, so it's fine. So now we see what the camera is seeing here, right here. But I usually make sure that I just key the groups, right, to do cameras. So I'm gonna set a keyframe here, and maybe let me turn on the sound again. So in 4 seconds, about 4 seconds, I'm gonna move. So I'm gonna turn on record, so auto key is on. So I could move the camera closer like this, right? But there's like a little trick I use because I want to also orbit around the character a lot. And that's where the gimbal comes in really handy because like if the gimbal this is the group gimbal, right? So because the scale of the camera doesn't change any aspect ratios or something like this, what you can do is you keep the center, instead of moving the group closer, I'm just gonna scale the group, right? So that brings the camera closer, but it gives me still the agency to rotate around the pivot, right? So you get like this crazy, like super smooth camera movement that's actually pretty difficult to do in just 2 keyframes, right? Then what you can do is you go 1 frame forward. You see I go 1 frame forward, and then I change the angle completely. So let me say I want to move from the bottom, from the leg, 4 seconds, 2, 3, 4, or 4 beats. I go up get closer, and maybe I also add a rotation here, something like this, right? And now you see so let me turn off the grid because the grid is kind of annoying. But you see that between these two, you might not see it, but there's like a little interpolation there, right? Because it interpolates in linear fashion. All you need to do is select this key and set it to step, and then it becomes like a perfect edit.
So just on the step, so if everything's linear and then you put one step keyframe in there, I thought back in the past that the keyframes had to be, that there had to be multiple keyframes for it to even act that way.
I mean,
Like
there's multiple keyframes, right?
No, but I mean, like having, you'd have to have like a before and after step.
No, it's between these two, right? How it like either linear from here to this or spline from here to here, you know. So you only have to change this one because this one will hold until the next keyframe, right? And then it turns to linear again. You can see it. Here it's stepped and here it becomes linear, right? So that way you can do like really quick camera movements, you know, and really complex ones, right? So you can say like, okay, maybe one is like here, and then I wait 4 seconds, 4 beats, and then move it down like this, maybe rotate it around, and now you have something like this. So the good thing is, you know, like if you don't have the monitor panel and you look through this, then it's really hard to follow. But with a monitor panel, you have everything in one place. And then if you have multiple cameras that are animated, right, then you can just basically switch between them here. And all you need to do now is like, I think I have to change this to stepped curves. And this is where I want to end the animation. I set the range. Make sure to set the range. And then if I go to preview, you see what you're going to render. So this is what you render, and then once you hit render, I can actually do this now, render, it will render the whole thing. And I have it on my hard drive. And the good thing about this is also when you hit preview here, and let me actually do this. We have this music here. Let me make it spatial. And let me make it spatial, and maybe you can hear it only close to the robot. Okay, let's do that. And then if we preview it now, let me see if it works. It should work. Yeah. So you can see that it's also spatial. So if you have like a spatial design audio, you will render it exactly the way you would hear it in Quill. So even if my head is right here, if you go to preview, it will play back the spatial audio from it. So it's like really, really cool. So if you do the spatial audio design in Quill and then you move the camera through it, the camera will experience it in a way as if you would move through the experience with your head. So
that's great.
That's why it's like really useful to set all the sounds up in Quill, because that way, you know, you will get the perfect results with spatial audio and left and right and stuff like that, just the way you heard it just now. So just to emphasize this, you know, I might be able to, let me just duplicate this. Oops. Let me just duplicate this sound source here, and then make it smaller, something like this. And then make this one louder, and then see what it does. There, okay. You heard it for a split second. Let me just make the radius a little bit bigger, and you will hear. So you heard it, right? That it jumps to the left side, and then you hear the other speaker?
Yep.
Yep, cool. So that's how you could do this. And basically, let's see what else. Oh yeah, one more thing for smooth camera moves. So I showed you guys the smooth camera moves, but I think I forgot the name of the community member asked about comic book panels, that there's like no way to render one frame or take a snapshot of one frame of the camera. Unfortunately, that function is not supported yet. And then if you do something like this, this is like one frame, this is like another frame. And then you have another frame here. Okay, so you have like these types of frames, right? And you want like you want to go frame by frame forward, and then what you can do is, let me turn off the monitor panel. So you basically film this, and let me maybe change it to just 16 by 9. 16 by 9 is good, and then this is one frame, and then you go to the next frame. Let me turn off onion scanning, and then you go to the next frame. Right. And then obviously you select all and set it to step curves. What you can do now in the monitor panel, you will see it. Let's switch to the storyboard cam. So you can just switch through it. Just like this, you can see what the camera is doing. And you can storyboard like everything just like that, and then you can still export a full video. I know that it's not ideal as like an image sequence or snapshots and stuff like that, but it is a pretty useful workaround if you need to do this. You don't have to like have tons of cameras. You can just have one camera to switch through a storyboard like this. And it could be also like a cool way to present stuff, right? So you can just go, yeah, this is what's happening in this scene, and this is what's happening in the next one. And this is only, of course, if you do a 2D output. If you want to export comic books panels, or if you want to export a 2D storyboard, this is the way to do it. And then you can even time it, right? So you can say like, oh, like I have maybe dialogue in here. And once you have dialogue in there, what if you do something like, let's feel it out. Like, hey, how's it going? Okay, so that took like about this amount of time. So I will move this over here. Hey, how's it going? And then the next frame is, we're doing good. And then you can time it out. So, hey, how's it going? We're doing good. But I'm mad, right? And so basically, that's how you could like do a full storyboard, a 2D storyboard, by just timing it out. And you can import like an audio file and match all those frames in there, and you can have the panels anywhere, right? So then you can render out, and it's actually much more useful to do it this way than having to go into Photoshop, having to go into After Effects and Premiere to add the audio and stuff like that. You could actually scrappy do it here, or even export like an 8K version of it if you need like a super good quality, It's a workaround, but I think it could actually accelerate the process versus like having to export each frame and open it in Photoshop and stuff like that, But this is something I wanted to cover for people that want to use it for 2D, It's a workflow that you could use. So let me save everything here and then open it up for questions.
Yeah, just to be sure, Quill, we aren't able to export PNG sequences or alpha?
Yeah. What you can do is like this legacy capture mode, right? Like you can capture like single frames, but no image sequences. So again, the workflow would be, capture like a super high quality pass and then export image sequence for Premiere or something. It's like I said, it's not ideal, but that's how you could do it, and you get similar results. In terms of alpha, like I know that this has RGBD. So this is a depth map. So you can actually, if you take a screenshot like this,
Oh.
Then you have a grayscale image and a color image, and you can upload that to Facebook, both to create like those 3D images. So that's one thing you can do. One thing I did not cover is also like you can actually take 360, right? So basically for 360, it takes what the camera sees as the forward and then revolves everything around it. So for example, let me find this camera. Where's my camera? Oh yeah, here. So this camera, for example, if I want to shoot a 360, right? I can basically put the camera here and let me close the monitor panel. And then I say like, I want the camera forward to be here and the distance to be here maybe. And then I will just, instead of selecting 2D, I select 360, render, and then it becomes like that's like a super high res one. So let me change that a little quick. I didn't want to render 8K. Although for 360, it might be important to have higher resolution. Let's go 3K, and then I can just render this. And now it's going to be automatically a 360 render that you can upload to a Facebook page or something like that. And the cool thing is, this is a separate process, so you can like keep working in Quill. This is another good thing. You don't have to wait until it renders. So basically, it initiates a separate process. So if you render a camera, I render again, right? You can still paint and stuff like that, right? So, and you can keep working. That's one of the things I
really appreciated about the rendering is like before I'd go to save something out or try to render something and it would just be me sitting there vegging out waiting for it to get done, but now you can actually like do things even if it's just look through the menus.
Yeah, and you can keep working, and that's the thing, it's still rendering, see? So and it's playing back and stuff, so it's pretty powerful.
Oh, but what you change doesn't end up in the render, right? While it is rendering.
Yeah, and basically what it does is it buffers it, just like, I think in Premiere, when you send things to Media Encoder, it's the same thing, right? Like in Media Encoder, you can still edit, and it's the same thing. Yeah, that would be crazy if you add new things and it bakes it into the render.
God.
Yeah. All right, that was it for today. I hope this was educational and hope to see you next time. Bye, guys.